They didn't hunt her like they hunted most enemies. They didn't call her the courier, or the radio operator, or just another agent. They gave her something colder, something that sounded like fear dressed up as contempt. The limping lady. In the whispered corridors of occupied France. That name moved faster than any train schedule, faster than ration lines, faster than hope itself. It passed from mouth to mouth in cafes, where people pretended not to listen, in back rooms where maps were unfolded like prayers, and in cellars where a single radio transmission could cost an entire family their lives. And somewhere in those same streets, hidden in plain sight, a woman walked with a limp. Not dramatic, not theatrical, just a faint, uneven rhythm on cobblestones, a slight pause on the step, a cane sometimes when it served her. And under her skirt, where no one could see unless they were close enough to kill her, a prosthetic leg, a wooden leg, a weakness the Nazis assumed, a flaw, a limitation. But war has a way of turning assumptions into graves. Her name was Virginia Hall, an American. A woman in a war that wasn't supposed to have room for women like her, especially not in the shadows. Before the world began to burn, Virginia wanted a life that made sense. A proper career, diplomacy, respectability, something that could be written on a letterhead. Then came the accident. An injury that ended her dream before it ever truly began. In another life, that would have been the end of her story. She would have gone home. She would have lived quietly. She would have been told, politely, that her ambitions exceeded her body. But history doesn't ask permission. When Europe collapsed into violence and occupation, when flags changed overnight and neighbors learned to fear each other's footsteps, Virginia Hall didn't step away. She stepped in, because by 1940 and 1941, France was no longer simply France. It was a country divided by ideology, by occupation, and by terror. The Germans didn't just invade land. They invaded trust. They installed systems designed to make ordinary people doubt their own families. And behind that machinery of control was the Gestapo, and a network of informers, collaborators, and men who turned fear into a profession. To run an underground operation in that environment was not merely dangerous, it was nearly impossible. Every safe house was a liability. Every meeting could be watched. Every whispered name could be overheard. Radio signals could be traced. Paper trails could become death warrants. And the most brutal truth of all, it only takes one arrest to unravel an entire network. Virginia understood this early. She wasn't a soldier who charged a hill with a rifle. She was something far more unsettling to the Nazis, a patient organizer of disorder. Her mission wasn't to be seen. Her mission was to make things happen, quietly, efficiently, without leaving fingerprints. A contact disappears. She finds a replacement. A courier gets stopped. She reroutes the message. A pilot is shot down. She creates a path, a chain of hands, a sequence of doors that open only once and then vanish behind them. In the beginning, she looked like no one at all. That was the secret. Not glamour, not seduction, not the cheap myth of espionage. The real weapon was normality. She moved through trains, markets, streets, carrying nothing that looked like a weapon, nothing that screamed resistance. But what she carried was far more explosive than dynamite. Information, names, routes, plans. And she carried another thing too. Something that cannot be forged, cannot be bribed, cannot be extracted by threat. Resolve. Because she knew what the Gestapo did to people in the dark. She knew what questioning meant. She knew that a prison cell was not a place you survived by strength alone. You survived by silence. By the time German counterintelligence began hearing rumors of an American woman building an invisible system under their noses, they didn't laugh. They didn't dismiss it. They looked for patterns. They watched for coincidences. They listened for the wrong word, spoken at the wrong time, and slowly, like a noose tightening without sound, the hunt began. They searched for a face. But Virginia wasn't a face. She was a method. Then someone reported something strange. A detail that didn't fit the ordinary crowd. A limp. A woman who moved with purpose. A woman who appeared and then vanished. A woman who seemed untouchable. And that's when the name began to spread through Gestapo files like a stain. Find her. The limping lady. She is one of the most dangerous Allied agents in France. Virginia Hall had become a ghost with a wooden leg, and ghosts don't stay safe forever. Because in occupied France, you can outrun patrols. You can change your dress, you can burn your papers and bleach your hair, but you can't outrun the moment when someone you trust, someone with a trembling voice and a cracked heart, decides that saving themselves is worth selling you. And that moment was already moving toward her. Next, Virginia will walk into the most treacherous terrain of all. Not mountains, not borders, not armed checkpoints, but human fear. And it will nearly kill her. Lyon did not feel like a city at war. That was the danger. Cafes still opened their doors in the morning. Trams still rattled through familiar streets. People still lined up for bread, still argued over prices, still laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. On the surface, life continued, because it had to. But beneath that thin layer of normality, Lyon was one of the most dangerous places in Europe. It was a crossroads, a hub, a meeting point for escape lines, resistance cells, black market couriers, and whispered promises of freedom. If Paris was watched, Lyon was listened to. Every rumor mattered, every stranger was measured. And this is where Virginia Hall chose to work. She didn't arrive like a heroine. No dramatic entrance, no grand declaration. She arrived as a journalist, as a relief worker, as a woman who asked questions politely and remembered the answers perfectly. From Lyon, Virginia began to do what she did best: connect people who were never meant to meet. A safe house here. A doctor willing to hide a wounded pilot there. A courier who knew the back roads. A priest who asked no questions. A farmer who understood silence. Each connection was fragile. Each depended on trust. And trust, under occupation, was a currency that devalued quickly. The Gestapo knew this. They didn't storm doors at random. Not at first. They watched. They waited. They studied patterns. Who visited whom, who disappeared and then reappeared with new papers. Which cafes were too lucky, too untouched by misfortune. Virginia felt the pressure building long before she saw it. A meeting canceled without explanation. A courier arriving late, pale, shaken. A radio operator reporting strange interference, direction-finding vans nearby. These were not coincidences. These were symptoms. And still she stayed, because leaving meant breaking the chain. And breaking the chain meant pilots trapped behind enemy lines, resistance members isolated, and entire networks collapsing into chaos. She adapted instead. She changed her routes daily. She varied her pace, sometimes leaning heavily on her cane, sometimes barely at all. She rotated safe houses constantly, never sleeping in the same place twice in a row. She compartmentalized information so thoroughly that no single person could betray everyone. But even perfect tradecraft has limits. In 1942, the Gestapo intensified their operations. Arrests came faster. Interrogations grew harsher. Men and women vanished into cells and did not return. And the truth Virginia feared most became unavoidable. Someone was talking. It might not have been intentional at first. A name dropped under pressure. A face described too clearly, a detail given away in the hope that it would be enough. But once the machine starts, it does not stop. Virginia learned of raids hours after they happened. Safe houses burned, radios confiscated, friends arrested. She was forced to move faster, think colder, cut ties she didn't want to cut. And all the while, the Gestapo files thickened. Descriptions began to converge. An American woman. Speaks French fluently. Moves easily among civilians. Connected to multiple resistance groups. Walks with a limp. The hunters were closing in. One night, she was warned. Quietly, urgently. A message passed through hands that shook as they delivered it. Her name had surfaced in interrogation. Not fully, not clearly, but enough. Enough to mean that if she stayed, it would only be a matter of time. Virginia faced a choice that defines the difference between bravery and recklessness. Stay and risk total annihilation of what remained. Or leave and trust that the structures she built could survive without her. She chose to leave, but leaving occupied France was not a matter of buying a ticket and boarding a train. Borders were watched, papers scrutinized. Smugglers betrayed their clients as often as they saved them. And for Virginia Hall, there was one more problem. One that could not be disguised, forged, or explained away. Her leg. In a world obsessed with documents, her body itself was evidence. Something that made her memorable. Something that made her trackable. Still she moved. She shed identities like skin. She crossed checkpoints with rehearsed boredom. She passed guards who looked straight at her and saw nothing worth remembering. Until one day, a door she expected to open stayed shut. A contact failed to appear, and she understood, with chilling clarity, that the Gestapo was no longer reacting. They were anticipating. Virginia Hall was no longer just an agent in the field. She was prey. And to survive, she would have to attempt something no one advised, no one expected, and no one believed a woman with a wooden leg could do. She would have to run, not through cities, not through paper, but through mountains, where mistakes are fatal. Mercy does not exist, and the body is forced to answer questions the mind can no longer delay. Next, Virginia Hall will face the moment when escape is no longer a plan, but a test of whether sheer will can overcome bone, blood, and cold. And the Pyrenees are waiting. By the time Virginia Hall understood how close the Gestapo truly was, it was already too late to disappear quietly. Her name, or enough of it, had entered their system. Not a full biography, not a photograph pinned neatly to a file, but something more dangerous than certainty, a pattern. And the Gestapo were masters at turning patterns into arrests. Reports circulated between offices. Descriptions were refined. Informants were instructed to watch for a woman who asked the wrong questions, who appeared too often in places where people were later arrested, and always the same detail returned. She walks with a limp. To the Gestapo, this was no longer a weakness. It was an identifier, a hook to hang suspicion on, something that cut through forged papers and fake names. They gave her a designation that carried weight, one of the most dangerous Allied agents in France. For Virginia, the city began to change. Streets felt narrower. Footsteps echoed longer than they should have. A man lighting a cigarette too slowly might be nothing, or might be watching her reflection in the shop window. She responded the only way she knew how. She became smaller. She shortened conversations. She reduced meetings. She burned addresses she could no longer risk remembering. She shifted from building networks to preserving what remained of them. And then came the warning she could not ignore. A trusted contact, his voice tight, eyes refusing to meet hers, told her that the Gestapo had asked about a woman like her. Not directly, not by name, but close enough. That was the moment Virginia understood the cruel truth of clandestine work. Once the enemy asks the right question, the answer is only a matter of time. Her superiors ordered her out, immediately. There would be no dramatic farewell, no closure, no guarantee that those she left behind would survive. She was to go south, toward the mountains, toward Spain, toward a border that existed on maps but not in reality. The escape route was brutal even for the healthy. Steep climbs, winter cold, thin air, patrols that shot first and asked nothing, guides who disappeared when things went wrong. And Virginia Hall would attempt it with a prosthetic leg that rubbed her skin raw with every step. She had a choice: remove the leg and be helpless, or keep it and endure pain that would become constant. She chose pain. The journey began quietly. No speeches, no heroics, just the sound of boots on frozen ground and breath turning white in the air. Each step sent shock through her body. The prosthetic slipped on ice. Her muscles compensated until they screamed. Her back burned from the imbalance, but pain was preferable to capture because she knew what awaited her if she failed. Cells where light never reached. Interrogations designed not to extract truth, but to destroy resistance. Names pulled from mouths not because people were weak, but because they were human. At night, she could not sleep. Cold seeped into her bones. Every movement risked a fall. Every pause risked freezing. At one point, she collapsed. The guide urged her to turn back, to rest, to abandon the attempt. Virginia Hall refused, not because she was fearless, but because fear had already shown her the alternative. She continued, step by step, into exhaustion that stripped thought down to instinct. Move, breathe, survive. When she finally crossed into Spain, she was barely conscious. The escape should have been the end of the ordeal. It was not. Spanish authorities arrested her almost immediately. Neutral did not mean safe. Bureaucracy replaced brutality, but captivity remained captivity. For weeks, she waited, body broken, future uncertain, while diplomats argued over paperwork and permissions. And all the while, somewhere north of the mountains, the Gestapo searched empty rooms and burned useless files. They had missed her, but Virginia Hall did not celebrate, because she knew something the war would soon prove again and again. Survival is not victory. Victory is returning. And while many would have taken this escape as a sign to stop, to step away, to finally accept limits, Virginia Hall made a different decision. She would go back, not as a woman fleeing capture, but as something far more dangerous, an invisible commander of shadows. Next, she will return to France, changed, hardened, and determined to finish what she started. And this time, the war will be closer to its end, and far deadlier than ever before. For most people, surviving the Pyrenees would have been enough. Enough pain, enough proof, enough reason to step away and let others carry the weight. Virginia Hall did none of those things. While doctors examined her ruined skin and officials questioned her judgment, she was already thinking about France. Not as a place she had fled, but as a place she would return to. The war had changed since she left. By 1944, the Allies were preparing for something immense, something that would tear the occupation apart. But no invasion succeeds without eyes on the ground, without locals who know which bridge matters, which road can be sabotaged, which town will rise and which will collapse into fear. That work belonged to the shadows, and Virginia Hall belonged there. This time, she did not return as a lone organizer moving through cities. She returned as a field coordinator, a ghost who spoke through others. Her role was no longer to build fragile chains, but to turn resistance into a weapon. She entered France again by parachute. No ceremony, just darkness, wind, and the hard ground rushing up to meet her. Her prosthetic leg nearly betrayed her on landing. Pain flared instantly, but she stood. She always stood. What followed was a campaign of quiet destruction. Virginia coordinated sabotage teams that cut telephone lines and railways. She helped plan ambushes that vanished before German reinforcements arrived. She arranged weapons drops and ensured they reached the right hands, not collaborators, not opportunists, but people who would act and then disappear. The Gestapo never realized she was back. They were still hunting the woman who fled. Now, she was something else entirely. Her strength was not physical. It was control, the ability to make dozens of small actions occur at exactly the right moment. A bridge destroyed here, a train delayed there, a convoy misdirected at a critical hour. None of it made headlines. All of it mattered. As the Allied landings approached, German forces grew nervous. Patrols increased. Reprisals became routine. Villages paid for resistance with blood. Virginia understood the cost of every decision she made. She saw fighters she trained disappear and never return. She heard of executions carried out as warnings. She carried those losses silently, because silence was the price of continuing. The climax came not in a single explosion, but in coordination. On the days surrounding D-Day, resistance networks under her guidance moved almost as one body. Rail lines feeding German reinforcements were severed. Communications failed at crucial hours. Units arrived late, or not at all. The invasion succeeded not just because of soldiers on the beaches, but because behind enemy lines, women and men like Virginia Hall had already begun tearing the occupation apart from within. And then suddenly, the Germans were retreating. Liberation came unevenly. Joy collided with grief. Cheers echoed through streets where names would never be spoken again. Virginia did not step into the celebrations. She stayed at the edges, watching, counting those who were missing. Because victory does not erase cost. After the war, medals were offered, commendations written. Her name appeared briefly, quietly, in official records. She accepted little. And then she vanished again, this time into a world that preferred not to remember how fragile its freedom had been. But history does not forget so easily. Because the true measure of Virginia Hall is not that she survived. It is that despite pain, fear, betrayal, and the certainty of what capture meant, she went back. One last chapter remains, not of war, but of what it means to remember those who fight without recognition, without applause, and without certainty that their sacrifices will ever be known. Next, we end where all such stories must end, not with glory, but with remembrance. When the war ended, the world rushed forward. Cities rebuilt themselves. Borders shifted. New conflicts quietly began forming in the cracks left behind by the old one. History moved on, as it always does. Quickly, impatiently, eager for the next chapter. Virginia Hall did not follow the noise. There were ceremonies she did not attend, stories she did not tell, questions she refused to answer. Not because she had nothing to say, but because the truth of clandestine war does not survive applause. She had seen what heroism actually looked like. It looked like couriers who rode bicycles through checkpoints, knowing a single search would mean execution. It looked like farmers who hid radios under floorboards while their children slept above them. It looked like resistance fighters who nodded once, accepted a weapon, and never came back. Virginia carried their names when no one else did. The official record would later describe her as one of the most effective Allied agents of the war. She would receive rare commendations, quiet ones, awarded behind closed doors. Even then, much of what she did remained classified, buried under ink and silence. But the most important legacy of Virginia Hall cannot be measured in medals or missions completed. It is measured in what she defied. She defied the idea that disability meant limitation. She defied the belief that women belonged only on the margins of war. She defied a system of terror designed to crush individuals into obedience. And she did it without spectacle. No speeches, no memoir written for fame, no attempt to shape her own legend. Because her work was never about being seen. It was about making freedom possible for others, even if they never knew her name. The Gestapo once hunted her as a phantom. a limping shadow that dismantled their control piece by piece. They feared her not because she was loud or violent, but because she proved something deeply unsettling, that even the most totalitarian system can be undone by patience, courage, and ordinary people who refuse to comply. Virginia Hall lived long enough to see the world forget how close it came to losing everything. And perhaps that is the quiet tragedy of peace, that it erases the memory of how fragile it is. So when we tell her story, we do not tell it to glorify war. We tell it to remember the cost of resistance, to honor those who fought without uniforms, to acknowledge the women whose courage was dismissed, minimized, or erased. Because history is not only written by generals and armies, it is written by women who walked through occupied streets with false papers in their pockets and death one question away. It is written by those who endured pain silently, crossed mountains no one thought they could survive, and returned, not for revenge, but for duty. Virginia Hall was one of them, and there are many more. In the next story, we will follow another woman the Nazis could not break. Another voice history almost lost. Another reminder that freedom is never inevitable.